Hey y'all, welcome back to Tater's Garden. We are in the hoop house again today. We're going to set up an irrigation system. I wanted to run y'all through that on how I like to do that here. And it basically, we're going to do a drip tape system. There are lots of different systems when it comes to irrigation. For me and my setup, the drip tape has worked out a lot better than other things I've tried. The other things that I've tried was some soaker hoses, but since we're on a well, it was difficult for me to filter the water enough that it would keep the hoses clear. What I ran into was I had to clean the filters every single day, and that was just too difficult. So I switched over systems with the drip tape. They don't get clogged up with the little bit of sediment that the well brings up. So the way that this system works is we'll have our main water line, which is just a hose coming from the well that'll hook into this pipe, which is called the header pipe, and then for each row of the crop we'll have the drip tape that hooks into the header pipe. And we're going to do this with all these little components, and we're going to walk through it all right now. So the header pipe, as you can see, is just a really thin wall pipe. It's maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick. I get this 3/4 inch stuff. 1/2 inch is also very common. I source all of this stuff. I think all of this stuff that I have here I got from a place called dripworks.com, and I got it from them because they were easy to find on the internet. Since then, I've found other places that sell all the stuff that are more local. I think it's probably all made in China, honestly. But I could go there and get pieces onesie twosie. The thing for me here in Tennessee, buying from a company in California, is that shipping kind of got steep because this pipe comes in a 500-foot roll, or at least that's how I was buying it, and so it got bulky. So the shipping wasn't cost effective for me. So we have some fittings here. The first fitting that is important in this kind of a system is this pressure reducer. And it's going to take the pressure from the well, which is running closer to 40 psi, down to 10 psi. And then attached to the pressure reducer is this just coupling that goes from a hose outlet into our header pipe. And so I'll put that all together. It all screws together really easy. This piece fits down on there. And once you get it kind of stuck on there good, it threads. Let's see here, there we go. This piece threads down on there, and it's cinching that on there tight. And once it's good and tight, later on we'll water test it. If it's leaking a little bit, I'll take it apart, push it on there again, but that's all there is to it. And most of the fittings in the system are that easy. So we measured it, we pre-measured it, pre-cut it so that this was right here, so I can plug the hose in easy from the outside, or we can run it back and run it from the inside, either way. Now we'll run up to the other end of the header pipe. Where the heck did I put that part? Oh, it's in my pocket. And we'll look at what's going at the other end of the header pipe. So up here at the other end, it's just a really very basic part that just holds a kink in the line. And so you fit this on here, and then you fold it over, and you shove the other end back in there. And that's all there is to it. It's super simple. It's just holding the kink. And I'll have to check on that once in a while. Sometimes when it gets hot, that thing will slip off of there, but typically it doesn't. And that's all there is to it. So that's up here at the other end. As we go a little more, we'll use some of those fabric staples, start holding this thing down. But once it gets good and hot in here, all this plastic, it was all just rolled up a little while ago, it'll all start to relax and start to get fit better into this space. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get ready to hook our drip tape into the header line. And so I'm measuring off where my pipe goes and where I want my tape to be. And I had planned on the plants being approximately 8 inches from the edge of the bed. So I'm going to kind of hope, it looks like my tape's going to end up being closer to 1 foot from the edge of the bed. And I'm hoping that this system is a system that I can make once and use for many years, and that's probably 3 to 5, honestly, just because the mice will come in here and chew this thing up, and I don't know why they do it, but they do. This particular tape that I purchased was a heavier duty size. They make it much lighter. and I got it, the heavier one, because I had hoped that I would be able to use it for years and years and years. That hasn't been the case because either I hit it with the hoe or because the rats and the mice like to come in here in the wintertime and chew on stuff. So with the tape, there's another little fitting. The thing that's important to remember about the fittings is they are all sized differently from the place where they stick into the pipe, and I'll show you how that happens. So there's a bunch of different size fittings, and it's how they connect here. And what you need to remember is the tool that you get that pokes the hole into the header pipe. The size that I use is size 0.40 inches. The most common size is 0.25. I didn't get 0.25 because they were out of enough of these different components of that size when I went to order my system. So I went with 0.40 because it had plenty of that stuff, and it was basically the same price for me at that time. There isn't any major benefit over the different sizes, but of course there's going to be more flow here, but I don't think that my systems that I'm creating are necessarily so big that that's a factor for me. It probably is for other people. So the way this thing goes together is we take this tool, we make sure that we're right at the right distance because you don't get a second chance on it. And we're going to very slowly and carefully punch that through. If you get too vigorous with it, you can actually punch through the other side and end up with a leak on the backside. So just go slow with it. And then once we get our drip tape hooked up, and the drip tape hooks up exactly the same as that other fitting. It's a lot easier because the drip tape's much thinner. And the way the drip tape works is it's a very thin walled pipe. Let's look at the end of it. Very thin. I don't even know how thick that is. I think, oh yes I do. It's 0.15 millimeters, and that's the heaviness. And I told you this was the heavy stuff, and the 0.15 millimeters is the heavy, and it's 0.08 is the lightweight stuff. They might even have something lighter than that. So that's one factor when you're considering the tape. The other factor is the distance between the emitters. You might be able to kind of see that little crack there in the tape. There's one every 12 inches in this tape, and you can get it down to one every 6, one every 8, one every 2 feet's a little less common, but you can find it. But there's different sizes, and depending on how precise you're trying to be with your irrigation, people will get multiple sizes. I didn't, because you buy the stuff on a roll that has something like 3,000 feet on it, which is a whole lot of drip tape. And I'm only halfway through my first roll, and I got it 3 years ago. So that's what the first end looks like. This component just popped through that hole, and it's stretched over that little barb there, and it seals up relatively good. It'll drip a little bit out there, but relatively good there. And that's how it seals up. The place that I find more leaks is between the collar and the tape itself. And so that's this end of it. So let's run down the other end really quick, and we'll put the end cap on the tape. So for this end, we have this piece that slides over the end of the tape. Let's see if we can get it to slide, huh? Slides right down in there, real easy now. It slides a little too far, then you roll that just slightly, and then you shove the roll back in the opening that's a little wider on that end, and that holds those kinks nicely. And I've never seen that one leak, though it could. And so once all this is done, I'll definitely take one of the fabric staples. We'll have to show that in a minute, to hold this end down. They fit right over the drip tape perfectly. I might put another one in the middle of the row, and I'll probably put a couple up along the header pipe to hold that thing. Otherwise, what I've seen happen is the system will kind of, when it's full of water, it extends out, but then once it's empty, it likes to shrink, and if it's not kind of stapled down here and there, the end will get pulled up, and you'll end up with a big bend in the middle, and then when you go to run your system again, that bend will end up being a kink, and you only water half the row. So let's go ahead and do a few more so you can get some repetitiveness and some more explanation as we go, and we'll get this thing built. I'm going to put a fabric staple here. I'll help hold that in down. I'll probably put one in a similar location all the way up along. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up along the header pipe and then go back along and do the all the ends. And then we'll hook it up and see if it leaks. So we had a good market on Wednesday. We saw a couple other vendors had some cucumbers, and I was a little jealous of that because I always like to be the first guy with stuff. And last year I had the first cucumber, but this year, since I was really pushing hard with my winter stuff in the bigger tunnel, I didn't put the cucumbers in as early as usual. And actually the second row of cucumbers didn't go in until today. We just got done doing that before we came up here to do this. We have another row, and we found some little cucumbers on it, but they're certainly not big enough for market yet because they're a great big old cucumber. It's called Suyo Long, and they get up 12, 14 inches. But I am fully confident that we'll be the first one there with the tomato. I'm going to go ahead and pick the first tomato of the season later today and have it for lunch. And I'm thinking that in a week, today's Friday, so next Friday, which will put us out to May 20-ish, which will be precisely 60 days after I planted these tomatoes in here. So that's when I'll start really harvesting a few tomatoes, which is right on schedule. They're supposed to be 60, 65 day tomatoes. I mean, and I think of that as once they're in the field, and they were started, these tomatoes were started the day after Thanksgiving. So they were, how long is that in the pot? 1, 2, 3 or 4 months in the pot before they ever came out. So they're pretty fair sized plants even before we transplanted them out here. But tomorrow's market we're going to is up in Knoxville. It's called the Market Square Market. I think it's the big market in Knoxville, and we're looking forward to getting back into it. We got into it our second year we had the farm, or heck, we might have lucked into it the first year, and it was great market, really nice people, really appreciated the products. But at that time our kids were kind of young, and it's a big market, a lot of people, and it's kind of a long market, so it was kind of rough to have the kids there for 5 hours. They were getting squirrely, wanting to wander off and see stuff, which was really hard to do. So we gave that market a rest for a few years and went to a smaller market that was up in the Knoxville area. And now we're happy to be going back to Market Square because there's a lot more customers there. All right, last one of this. And this lamb's quarter weed, which seems to be one of the prevalent weeds down here, we'll take it to market sometimes and sell it as wild spinach because it's really, really tasty. It tastes a lot like spinach. Even has a similar texture. It's a little bit fuzzy, but if you steam it, you can't really tell the difference. Oh, that reminds me. Sweeter was planning on making spanakopita for dinner tonight. I should tell her we don't need to buy spinach because we got some. That might not go over so well. But maybe she's going to make me a special one with lamb burger in it. Maybe I can talk her into putting this in for me too. All right. That's enough of a break. Let's get this done. But luckily this end's easy. And then we just stretch them out, staple them down, and put the water to it and hope it goes. All right, so there's that. I'm going to go get the water set up and turned on, and then we'll come in, move the pipes around, and get it all set up. Okay, so we're back. The water's on. You can see here's a good example of a leak. And that's coming out from around that fitting there. So I'll have to futz, and it's coming out around that blue collar. So I'll have to futz with that a minute to try and reduce that. That's a little bit more of a leak than I'd like. If it would just drip, 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 I wouldn't worry about it. But that's a run. And that's just going to make a water issue. Not that I'm worried about wasting the water, because we don't have that concern here usually. But it's going to make mud. I don't want to deal with that. So all I'm going to do right now is go through and make sure this drip tape is over close to the plants. And I said earlier that the emitters are 12 inches apart. These plants are more like 20 inches apart. And so the way that I use the drip tape isn't so much that I'm trying to water each plant, though that is the way some people do it. I just try to make sure that the ground, the soil where the plants are growing, is well watered. So I'm watering the soil, not the plant. And that's kind of just my take on it. Just keep the soil happy and the soil keeps the plants happy kind of thing. And so anyway, that's all I'm going to do next is go through, tuck the tape up against the tomato stakes and the bottoms of the tomato plants. If there's any lower leaves that are underneath the tape, move them out of the way. And that's about it. So anyway, we're going to look at this, get these lines straightened out, fix that leak and any others we might see. I don't hear anything real weird. Sometimes if a mouse chews on it when it's on the spool, you'll hear it psst, hitting plants or something, sprinkling. So I don't hear any of that, so I think we're going to be okay. So we'll look forward to talking with you again for another update. I wanted to try and get you all down into the big tunnel. We were down there finishing some planting up down there. The tomatoes are getting as big as these. The plants are anyway. Don't have as many green fruit down there, but it's looking pretty awesome. So we'll have to get down there and take a look at it real soon. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.